Amanda Christovich from Front Office Sports. All right, tell me everything like I'm 5.
Okay. Well, sorry. So you want to talk about what?
Oh, dear God. All right, okay, so the timeline starts yesterday evening on, I think Ross may have had a story about
Yes. All right. Let's start with
the
that.
contract and then all the way to where we are today. Thank you for being with us today.
Oh, yes. Thank you for having me. I was a couple minutes late to the Zoom because I was chatting with another source about this story. So yesterday news broke, and I had been hearing rumors about this as well, but hadn't been able to get my hands on the actual document, that the power conferences have been distributing kind of like a contract or memo that says that all of their schools will not be allowed to sue the conferences if they are upset about the new rules that the House settlement will create. So think about that NIL clearinghouse, right? The ability to punish players or schools, or we don't know what the punishments will be. But let's say a player or a school gets punished for doing a deal that is considered pay for play through this clearinghouse or according to the clearinghouse, and the player decides to go forward with said deal anyway. The idea with this memo is that the school won't be allowed to sue and say, it's an antitrust violation to prevent my athlete or punish my athlete from, earning the money that they so rightly deserve. The salary cap, the revenue sharing cap, right? Because of course they're not salaries, it's revenue sharing, is the other thing that they don't want any school to challenge. There's a cap that the House settlement sets on how much money you can give players every year, and they don't want any school to challenge that cap in court. They're concerned that schools are going to do that players are going to do that somebody's going to do that. Whether or not it sounds to me like there's a final draft of this memo. Now the question is, who's going to sign it? And if they don't, what's going to happen?
So, Amanda, one of the details in Ross's story was that part of signing the memo is that you have to agree to not follow the law of your state if it contradicts the ruling. Mm-hmm. How do they have legal standing to do such a thing? I mean, could we just start an association? Like, Smokey has never once obeyed a speeding limit and never will until he dies in a very fiery crash. Yeah. If he decided to start an association saying, like, listen, we got a lot of money, we're not going to follow the speed limit anymore, that's it. Like, that's not going to fly. So I don't understand what they're trying to accomplish here.
Trytreatscom. Mason's in here too. We have the treats that shows everything that's in the box. Alfina, probably chocolate. What do you guys think? A Mickey sesame snack with honey. Christovich. Those are pretzel sticks. Milky creamy fudges.
That's good.
We have hazelnut bread. I'm thinking these might be like Cheetos, but like long sticks. Then we got like a little classic bar. Legendary Smack. Delicious crunchy cream wafers.
Well, so this is a little bit different from the speed limit speed limit association in the sense that not too much, but slightly different in the sense that what the memo is theoretically saying, if that report is true, because again, I'm trying to get my hands on the memo. If any athletic directors are listening, please send it to me. Everyone is trying to get our hands on this memo. I've got like a ton of people, who are like looking for it for me. But if it is true that that is the case, what it would mean is it's more about the fact that the schools are sort of saying, we are not going to invoke our state law that protects us from these restrictions. So let's take Tennessee, for example. That's the best, because Tennessee passed a state law last week that not only said that revenue sharing is, the NCAA cannot prevent revenue sharing in their state, regardless of the House settlement, whether it passes or not. But there were also other stipulations suggesting that it would be illegal in the state of Tennessee for the NCAA or any other body to enforce, a revenue sharing cap or a clearinghouse or other things like that. So what if Tennessee were to sign this memo, theoretically, the school itself would be saying, we recognize our state law says that, we have these extra rights, but in order to be a member of this conference and be in the NCAA and be a member of the SEC, we are agreeing that we are not going to challenge these restrictions, even though the rules that are being, implemented by the House settlement are more restrictive than our own state law. We are agreeing not to invoke that in a way, if we're agreeing to the potential penalties. What they can't do with this memo, however, is get the state attorney general to sign it. And that theoretically could really be the person who would sue a conference for, or all of the power conferences collectively, the enforcement entity, right? The school doesn't have to sue. And this already happened in Tennessee. This was a huge NIL lawsuit that it was the one that ended up resulting in the NCAA not being able to enforce the NIL rule saying you can't negotiate deals before you go to a school. So an attorney general is not beholden to this. So even though the school waives their rights potentially, even if this memo is legal and holds up in court, which we don't know if it is or it does, the attorney general could step in anyway and invoke the state law because the attorney general isn't signing this memo.
What are coaches, not that they have a say in this, but what are they saying about maybe this latest turn on this winding road?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't spoken to coaches directly, but I have spoken to the sort of legal industry that is in touch with coaches.
Mm-hmm.
And the lawyers are just kind of like, hey, we are going to have a lot of business with this memo because everyone seems confused. Everyone, the coaches are confused. The coaches are unsure whether this is a good thing or not, right? So I think ultimately everybody is, not only unsure of what it would mean if their school does decide to sign this memo, but they don't even know if their school is going to. I can tell you that this time last week, I reached out to folks who were pretty, they were not low on the totem pole in some athletic departments in the power conferences, and they had never heard of this memo. So like for a few hours, I wasn't even sure it existed. It's being kept very tight. It's like the university presidents and the university general counsel and the athletic directors are the ones who have access to this information, and the coaches and sort of folks other in the athletic department collectives, they're all sort of finding out secondhand. So that creates, even if they ultimately agree with this idea, it creates this sense of, confusion and what's going on and who do I call and can you give me information? Does my athletic director plan on giving me information? So the amount of that this has been kept sort of under wraps has been interesting to me, just as interesting to me as, what the memo itself actually says, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I saw a note from Darren Heitner. We brought him up on a couple of things he mentioned about that he is going, and all the others, as you mentioned, are going to be crammed with suits or with legal issues. So what happens, Amanda? This was the week that it appeared Judge Wilkin might rule, and she still might rule. And whatever that is, who knows?
It's only Tuesday. We got a long week.
Dear God, yeah, I know. So do you feel like she's going to rule and then everybody just starts to go in different directions no matter what she says, or what's going to happen here?
I think, she will rule, I believe, by the end of the month. I think I would be shocked if she did not rule by the end of this week. And if she happens to be listening, I will be on a red eye internationally on Friday night starting at 8 p.m. So please make that decision. We have pre-writes ready. Please make this ruling before 8 p.m. on Friday night when I may not have access to the internet for 9 hours. Anyway, so what happens if and when she approves the deal I call it a deal because even though it's it feels like a deal, right? If she approves the settlement, then in a sense, things sort of continue as the status quo for the next month, because technically the settlement doesn't go into effect until July. So the clearinghouse, none of the deals the NIL deals that are currently in place, like right now, need to go through the clearinghouse. You only have to submit a deal to the clearinghouse if the money is being paid after July 1st, which is why so many collectives have scrambled to front load deals and offer, quote unquote, what really kind of is pay for play NIL money to players. Let's say they want to give a player, they would normally give them monthly payments for the next 12 months, right? They're just paying them all the money right now up front. Obviously, that could create concerns if the player hits the portal, but, they just don't want to have to submit that deal to the clearinghouse. So that there's going to be a lot of that over the next month, I think, is where the big scramble is going to be.
And I've seen a lot of illegal, at least conjecture right now about Deloitte's role in this and how it's a bit of a gigantic kind of a conflict of interest given the largesse of their company.
Yeah, the conflict of interest thing, it's been unclear about what exactly Deloitte's role in making these decisions was. What it was very clear to me that the power conferences wanted to project a sense that Deloitte themselves were not involved in creating any of the parameters of whether to accept or deny NIL deals. They just literally created the software. They took the information and created the software. And then what I wrote today was that, I guess technically this was written in the settlement, but it's really been quite unclear how or to what level the NCAA itself might be involved in enforcing, or adjudicating any of these penalties. The NCAA is not going to be involved at all. Apparently, they have no involvement whatsoever in the clearinghouse, in the enforcement arm, in deciding eligibility penalties based on NIL money and, adjudicating revenue sharing, making sure everyone follows the cap. They have no involvement. Okay. And apparently, like I said, I got an angry phone call today. Apparently that was not, that is new information to me. It was apparently not new information to some folks, but I do think that it was worth mentioning that, some people were calling it the NCAA's NIL clearinghouse, right? So they're going to have no involvement whatsoever. All of this is going to be owned and like the Deloitte piece is owned and operated by the power conferences alone. And the infractions are coming from the power conferences alone. So they will not be able to complain about infractions because they will be the ones adjudicating them. The NCAA is not going to be adjudicating NIL penalties anymore going forward.
Yeah, which means that they'll start to not lose any more lawsuits because they're over like the last 10,000. Amanda, I know you got to go, and good luck on your trip. I remember the last time you were like going on a little vacation. It might have been a year ago. I don't remember, but something popped.
Something always pops. I was in Mexico when the Pac-12 settled, the departing schools settled with Washington State and Oregon State. And something always happens, but it's okay. That's why we have internet, no matter where we go. That's exactly
right. Yeah.
Well, you've got it pre-written, so just all you have to do is land or pay the $9 on your flight. Yeah, and thanks for helping this 5-year-old understand some of the logistics a little bit. You do a great job, Amanda. We appreciate your time so much. Front Office Sports, Amanda Christovich, who's been with us and on with us many, many different times.